Teaching a dog to come is the most important command that you can teach. It's important as a human that you know exactly what behavior you're looking for when you ask a dog to come. I see many owners asking the dog to come, but yet they don't follow through and they don't require a specific behavior. Sometimes they'll say come and only expect the dog to come halfway. Sometimes they'll say come and want them to come all the way, and it can be very confusing for the dog. For me, when I tell a dog to come, I expect them to come all the way to me, where they physically have to touch me, and then they stay with me until I give them a release command. Now, there are other commands that you can teach that lets a dog know that they need to come back in this direction, in whatever direction you are. In the beginning, we're going to reward a dog for just turning and starting in the direction. We'll eventually work up to making the dog come closer and closer before earning the reward. It's really important that you use a nice long lead in order to teach your dog. You want to be able to follow through. We always start on lead. Today we're going to be using a 30-foot lead. This is of cotton material that's much softer than your nylon leads. You're not going to use a retractable lead. You need to use a long lead such as this. It may take you a little practice getting used to using it to where you're not tripping yourself up, nor are you tripping up the dog. And just like every other behavior that we're teaching, we want to get that behavior before we start putting a name to it. However, with this behavior, we have to give a little bit of an enticement to the dog in order to get them to come back in our direction. We're not going to be using the dog's name in order to teach the behavior. Remember, the dog's name is not the command to come. The dog's name should be, pay attention, I'm about to give you more information. So we're going to entice the dog with using some baby talk, clapping our hands. And we're going to mark the behavior as he turns and comes towards us, either with a verbal marker or a clicker. So we're going to start out with our long lead. I always like to put the handle over my wrist. That way it keeps the leash attached to me. Now when we start out, we're going to be calling the dog, going to be enticing the dog. If the dog does not come, we will slightly reel the dog in until the dog comes on his own. So we're going to start out with, Bo, come on puppy, come, good boy, good, come, good boy. He stays with me. So you can grab him gently by the collar, pet on him while you reach into your bag and get the treat. Do not have the treat in your hand. Good boy. I want you to mark the behavior first and then give him an okay, and he's free to go back out. Bo, come on buddy. Come, good boy, good come, good boy. Good job, buddy, good boy. Good job, okay. Good boy. Here I am allowing Brandy to roam around, and then when I am ready, I begin to call her to me. I give her a few seconds to make that choice. If she doesn't want to come, I will gently begin to reel her in. When she starts coming on her own, I don't have to reel anymore. I will begin praising and rewarding for the behavior. I will use the dog's name and then ask the dog to come. If they start coming on their own, I begin praising. If they do not, I will start to reel in lightly with the leash and then reward when they do come. Be sure you are grabbing by the collar, petting, and then reaching in for the treat. Do not have the treat out. We are not going to use the treat as a reward or as a bribery. You will then release the dog, allow the dog to go out. I always like to change up when I call the dog. Sometimes I will allow them to venture out a little bit longer, a little bit farther before calling them. Sometimes I will let them just walk 2 or 3 steps away and then immediately call them back. So I'm looking for that turn on a dime. And you see, as we continue practicing, Brandy is learning that coming to me is very rewarding. She gets love, she gets a little treat, and she gets to go back out to play. So I'm not having to do as much reeling in. And that is what you're looking for. You want them to know that coming is a fun thing and that good things can happen. So here I call Brandy, and she is really into something on the ground. I give her a chance. Then I have to start reeling her in. And I want to do it as lightly as possible. Obviously, the heavier the dog, the harder it's going to be. I will continue calling, getting excited. Now, because she has come so well before, the consequence of taking that long and me having to reel her in is that she's going to have to stay with me for a little bit longer, and she may or may not get a piece of food.
So as they get better, we start requiring more for them to earn those heavy and exciting rewards. Otherwise, they still have to come, but they just may not get the really yummy stuff. They may not get to be released as quickly. So here I'm calling her again. I'm excited. I'm not allowing her to continue to walk away. Once I call the dog, I will allow the leash to remain slack until they end up at the end of it, or unless they keep walking. And if they just keep walking, I will stop with the leash so that they don't get a reward for not listening by continuing to head in the direction they're going. So remember, it's about getting the dog to come on their own, but the use of the leash allows us to follow through with it and allows us to teach them what it is we want. So you see right there, she was walking away from me, and 3 or 4 steps away, I called her again, and she immediately turned around and came back. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm wanting her to know that I have good things, and that she needs to make the choice, and she's making that choice right there of, is it worth coming? Am I going to get something good for it? Is there something better out there? And when she realizes that that something better I control, then things start to kind of click for them. This definitely takes a lot of practice, and you want to practice in areas that are not so distracting in the beginning, and then work up to where things are more distracting. Here she's very distracted. There was another dog, and she was very distracted, and I had to reel her all the way in. At that point, she doesn't get a treat, but she does get praised and loved on, but she has to stay with me for just a little bit longer before she gets to, go out and see other things in the world. So here we have more distraction. When I call Brandy to me, I'm going to give her 3 to 5 seconds to respond. Once a dog understands kind of what you're wanting, I always want to give them a chance to respond, but she chooses not to. I have to begin the process of reeling her in, and even during that reel in, she starts to come, but then changes her mind. So once again, she's going to get praised for coming all the way to me, even though I had to physically make her. She still gets praised, but she loses that opportunity of moving away from me faster, and she loses the opportunity of earning a reward. Make sure you're using really yummy rewards for this, just enough to taste, so that it's worth it to them. If it's a reward that they get all the time, it's not going to be worth it to them at all. You can also practice this in the house. About a minute or 2 exercise where you can put one person on one end of the house and another on the other end of the house, and just practice calling the dog a couple of times and rewarding him for coming. That's a little bit of off-leash practice until you can get outside and do some on-leash. So you can see as we continue practicing this, Brandy continues getting better. She continues coming a little bit faster. Once she's really consistent on the long lead, then we will begin the practice of off-leash come in a safe environment. And that will be in another video, so stay tuned. So here we move to a different area, something a little more distracting, a little more smell, but you can see how quickly Brandy is coming now. She's understanding that good things happen, the tail is up, she's enjoying training. Now in this next little clip, we have Bo, and we are working in a highly distracting area, a parking lot. They're a very busy road, and I am working with him on coming in that distracting environment. Now, when using an area such as this, it can be very dangerous if your dog is not on a lead. So I highly recommend that you work on lead with your dog, help the dog learn what it is that you want. And then when you go to working off lead, you can do it in a safe environment. And then once they're consistent in a safe environment, you can begin practicing them in a more distracting environment, because we do want to make sure the dog can come in those areas that can be scary and that can be dangerous. So just like working right next to the road, only have the leash out as far as the dog can stay out of traffic. Use your common sense when working on this. If you have questions, email us. Stay tuned for more videos on teaching a dog to come when called in the real world.